Hey guys, this is Sheena with Crooked Calligraphy, and today I'm going to show you how to mix your own colorful calligraphy inks using tubes of gouache or watercolor paints. Alright guys, so here are all the supplies you're going to need. So obviously watercolor or gouache paint. Honestly, I just use really inexpensive watercolor. These I got at Walmart. These Reeves ones you can either get, I think, on Amazon or at Michael's stores. I think if you're going to be doing actual watercolor painting, it's worth it to get a more high-end paint. But for calligraphy ink, you know, where it's going to be more saturated and thick, these totally work fine for me. I mix up all of my inks in these little half-ounce plastic jars. I get them at John Neal Bookseller. They're super handy, just the right size. The lid screws on tight so nothing spills if you're going to be doing any traveling. So I always have a lot of these on hand. A water dropper, some water. I just use regular tap water. I live in Los Angeles. It's never given me a problem. Some people I know say to use distilled water or filtered water. So if you have like really heavy water in your area, that might be a better idea. I've never found it to be a problem. And then finally a stick. I just use the back end of this paintbrush for mixing. And it's a really simple process. You just, oops, this is brand new. I didn't even puncture the top. All right, so I just squeeze in like a good amount of gouache if you're going to sort of fill up this jar with ink. Then I like to cover the bottom, and I'm going for a kind of pink shade here. So I've put in that amount of watercolor or gouache, and then just kind of add water. So you want to start with maybe less water because you can always add more water to thin it out, but it's harder to make it thicker if you've added too much water. I'll explain that a little bit more later on in the video. Okay, so you basically want to just mix really well until all the paint is mixed in with the water, and you're looking for a consistency kind of like half and half or heavy cream. And the way to really tell if that is going to work out is to test it. All right, so here you can see that the ink is just sort of not flowing out very well. There it goes. So that means it's a little bit too thick, just a touch too thick, so I'm just going to add a little more water. Mix that up and test it again. And that is looking much nicer. So you can see how it flows out nicely. The hairlines are thin. The transitions are nice and crisp between the downstrokes and the upstrokes. So here's what happens if you make the ink consistency a little too thin. Here's another batch that I've mixed up out of gouache and watercolor, and I've added a little bit too much water, and you can just see how the ink kind of blobs out of the nib. It sort of tends to run out too fast, and it leaves you with these sort of ugly transitions. The hairlines are not nearly as fine as with the right consistency here, and you're just going to have that problem if the ink is too thin. So there's two ways to solve that. You can either add more gouache into the mix, stir that up, and that should thicken it up, or leave the ink pot out overnight uncovered, and some of the water will evaporate, and that should thicken it up as well. And that's pretty much it for mixing gouache. It's really a lot of trial and error. Different brands of gouache will behave a little bit differently. Even different colors within the same brand will act a little bit differently. What nib you use will have an effect. Some can take a thicker gouache, some like a little bit of a thinner consistency. So really just mix, have your eyedropper and water handy, add a little bit of water here and there just to get the perfect consistency for you, and you'll be mixing up awesome colors in no time.